It's a new era for Apple. Tim Cook is stepping down as CEO, and John Ternus, Apple's top hardware guy, is now steering the ship. So let's talk about it. I wanted to assemble a team to discuss where Apple's going next. So joining me are two of my colleagues with a long history of covering Apple products. First up, we have Patrick Holland, CNET Director of Content. Hey, Patrick.
Start a new era now.
And also with us is Scott Stein. He's CNET Editor-at-Large. Hey, Scott.
Hey, let's get into the product future here.
Well, Tim Cook is still going to be with the company. He's CEO for now until the summer, until September 1st, and then he's going to become the executive chairman on the board of directors, where Ternus will then step into the CEO role. Now, Ternus is walking into Apple at a time where a lot of factors are changing in the industry. But Patrick, you know Tim Cook certainly did leave Apple in a pretty good state. Let's talk about where things are right now.
He left it in a $4 trillion state, which I think most people would be pretty happy with. And I think if Apple's kind of like this amazing acoustic guitar, Tim Cook was the one who plugged it in and amplified it and brought in. We have 4 lines of iPhone. We have the Apple Watch, it's now 3 lines. How many different MacBooks and Macs do we have? And we have new products like AirTags, Vision Pro, and things like that. And that's not even to touch on like services like Apple TV. On the whole of it, he brought Apple to more people, brought Apple products more broadly there. And I think for me, one of the things he did is he also made Apple, for a time, a bit more political. They weren't as shy to be secretive about their thoughts and beliefs and their politics. Going back to like 2014, I actually worked at Apple, and I was on the Apple retail team, and we got to film Apple's participation in the San Francisco Gay Pride Parade. It was a big deal. Tim Cook was there. A few months later, he came out publicly, and there was this line he had about, while we like to keep our products secret, we want our beliefs and values to be public. And I think that's something up to a certain point they have been able to do during his tenure. Maybe not during the gold statue for Trump moment. That didn't feel very like public value-y.
On that last note, Patrick, Apple said in the press release that Cook will still be assisting in certain aspects of the company, including, quote, engaging with policymakers around the world. Tim entered this era of Apple where things were pretty stable geopolitically, and clearly this is another whole new challenge for Ternus kind of going in. And so it's clearly a big benefit to Apple to still have Tim Cook kind of hanging around in this respect. Scott, kind of looking at where we're sitting right now, what's kind of on your mind?
There's a lot of potential change that's coming. The Vision Pro was the thing that Tim Cook really tried to make happen, and what did make happen, it didn't take off. It's unclear whether it was ever really designed to at that price. Glasses are the thing that are reported to be next, and these are Meta Ray-Ban displays. Right now, there's a big backlash against glasses. There's a lot of people getting pissed off about surveillance tech, rightfully so, and especially in this political climate. Where does Apple go with that? AI is Apple's other unsolved problem at the moment. Hardware is a very important part of this picture. So Apple making hardware that can run AI is a big piece in the puzzle. And then the other part too is like how these products keep morphing and evolving now that there's a common chipset. To me, the MacBook Neo is just one small part of that picture. Is running a phone chip, but I've gone on for years about the iPad becoming a Mac, but let's not just stop there. There's supposed to be a folding phone this fall, and does that evolve to become something of an iPad as well? Are all of their devices going to kind of morph, which they should, because they're running common chips, and there's really no stopping any one of them from taking on qualities of the other. And I think that's a huge road ahead for what Ternus can do with this. In redefining products and redefining how people are using these products.
Here comes WWDC in June. What everyone is talking about, what all the rumors are talking about, is how this developers conference is going to have a big focus on Siri. And it's also kind of poetic because Tim Cook kind of came into this role as CEO with Siri on the iPhone 4S. And now, 15 years later, here comes, the next level of Siri. And I think that even though John Ternus is a hardware guy, and it's very exciting to think about where hardware is going next, and I want to keep talking about that, the importance here of how well Siri is received and developed in its next evolution really is going to impact all those things you talked about, Scott, the glasses and all where we're heading next in hardware and how it's going to interact with these phones. So this is a very big year with everything that we're touching on. We're talking about folding phones.
Apple has something solved that is the bigger problem on most foldable phones, which is not the screen crease. That's not a huge problem. It's the software. And so they have the most popular tablet people can buy. They have software that people love that run on that. And if you can imagine your iPhone on the outside cover having iOS and then opening to that iPad OS version, it just makes complete sense.
I don't know what you guys think maybe a Ternus era looks like, but if we're talking about AI and assistants being used in new ways, I want to see more on what Apple's doing with robotics. I don't know if there's some wish list things that you want to see John Ternus hit on first, Patrick, but I think there's a lot going on with hardware lately, at least in the buzz.
I think for me, the thing I look forward to is just seeing how Apple evolves, because I see a lot of things in the phone world outside of the US that aren't here. A lot of Chinese brands that are doing very exciting things in terms of hardware and AI with the phones that we don't have here in the US. Like, one of the most wild things I saw was at MWC was this Honor robot phone. Essentially, it had kind of like a DJ Osmo pivot head that would come out of the back of the phone and move around. And I look back in the US, and there's a reason the iPhone's popular. It's a really good phone, but there's not a lot of wild technology competing with it in our borders here. So I'm excited to see how Apple, in that environment is able to add interesting features to existing products, but also branch out stuff. I mean, are we going to get another AirTag that has like a little loop or to put something in my wallet? Are we going to get other product lines expanding? And then there's a whole issue about glasses and stuff, which I'm curious about. Not excited about, but just curious.
Scott, what's got you excited maybe is what you hope Ternus to kind of put his focus on first? There's a lot to focus on, clearly.
In the current AI environment, it would be Apple's in the driver's seat to try to figure out some solutions that could focus on personalization and privacy. But also, when I think about, Apple's always selling us another product for another specific thing. The reason I always get upset about the iPad and Mac not fusing is because there are a lot of things you could do with the stuff you already have. It may seem silly to people. I plug in a pair of glasses to make a large monitor for the phone. This capability is there. If people want to do stuff anywhere and make the most out of things, there are ways Apple could expand the interconnected capabilities wirelessly or via USB plugins and make that easier. And I think those would be very transformative. But we also have to get out of the mindset of like selling everyone so many different products and push more about what you can do with the one you have.
There is a new way maybe of needing to think about the future, but certainly with how they're set up for services and how many products that are in the pipeline that are rumored, it's going to be some interesting times in the next year. But we still get one more Tim Cook. I would hope, right? for WWDC, we get one more good morning.
The other thing I think real quick with Tim Cook is he's going to be executive chairman of the board, and he's replacing Art Levinson, who is the founder and CEO of an aging health tech company, right? So I think one of the legacies with Tim Cook that has been the expansion into kind of not only fitness, but health and well-being around products. And I'm curious to see if that will continue under Ternus. I hope so.
Thank you, Patrick and Scott, for joining me. Thanks for watching. And be sure to read up on tons of coverage at CNET.com as we talk about what's changing over the next couple of months with the new CEO. I'll catch you next time for One More Thing.